Welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to cover a very interesting thing that happens in opposite colored bishop positions as advanced chess strategy for those trying to get to 2000 ELO and above. So the interesting thing here is when there are opposite colored bishop positions and when there's more pieces on the board as well, if there's no other pieces, it's pretty drawish. When we've got positions like this, what you'll find is most of the squares on the opposite color to your opponent's bishop are weak for them. So for instance, as black, this is a game I played against the computer. I'm black here. I've got the dark squared bishop. My opponent's got the light squared bishop. I have absolute control of the dark squares in the position. And it's not because I intentionally set out to do that. It's just a consequence of my opponent having a light squared bishop and no dark squared bishop. So there's something interesting that happens afterwards. I'll just play a few moves and you'll see what I mean. So here I played queen to g5, and now again, this is, think about all the squares I have access to with my queen and other pieces. They're all dark squares. My opponent played rook to f1, trying to put pressure on that f7 square, and that's pretty much the only point in my position that the computer can attack. So if I played something silly like b4, that would allow the bishop to come in, the other rook's going to come in, the queen will slide in as well. So I don't want to play b4, but what I want to do is make the most of the dark squared weaknesses in my opponent's position, and I start putting my pieces on those dark squares because they're so weak, they end up being really good squares for my pieces. And likewise, you'll see as the game progresses that white keeps his pieces on the light squares. Again, it's not an intentional thing, it's just a byproduct of the weak squares. So here the opponent's trying to trade queens because I'm the one attacking. I simply stopped that by playing bishop e5, and now my plan with h5 and bishop e5 is essentially to move my king to g7, move my rook over, and open the h file. And if my opponent plays something like h3, then that weakens the g3 square as well, and my queen can sort of zigzag in and deliver checkmate quite easily. So white's got to be very careful. I mean, if you think about it, g3 is the only true dark square in the position that that white is still controlling. So queen to d5, just the easy threat on f7, and watch this, rook to e7. And now that rook, which was on a light square, ends up on a dark square. So again, nothing intentional about this, it's just a byproduct of what happens in opposite colored bishop positions. Here, I just take that h2 pawn with a discovered attack on the queen. And after the queen drops back, I drop my bishop back, and now I have control of all of these dark squares. And white is absolutely cooked in this position. So in a few moves, you'll see why the opponent can resign, but with bots, you've got to checkmate them. But here we go. Rook to h8, and just check this out. Here's the beautiful anti-symmetry, or whatever you want to call it here. All my pieces are in dark squares. All my opponent's pieces are in light squares, and again, it's nothing intentional, it's just a byproduct of these opposite colored bishop positions. Generally, the pieces drift onto the opposite color complexes because of all the weaknesses in your opponent's position in terms of the opposite squares. So, you know, d5, c6, they're good squares for the white pieces, but again, there's not many good squares for white in this position, which is why black is winning, because black just has so many more pieces, so many more squares for their pieces. So after king g2 takes, I come crashing in, rook h2, I finish my plan, and now if king f3 is played, I can simply take here, take, and then that's winning. And likewise, king g1, which was played, is not much better because I just drop the queen back, and there's nothing white can do against that threat of rook to h1. So the bot played rook a6, and I simply finished it off like this. And after rook takes f1, you know, a human could have resigned some moves ago, but here definitely a human would have resigned, because after takes, you just win the queen with a pawn, nice and beautiful. Obviously the bot made me checkmate it after a few moves, but you can kind of see how quickly you can cash in on the dark squared or the opposite color weaknesses in your opponent's position in these opposite color bishop positions. So keep that in mind for your games. Peace out, and see you guys in the next video.